Thank you for joining the call today. My name is Greg Nicias. I am the Production and Tech Support Manager here at InfoSense. I've spoken with many of you over the years, and I'm now putting out a series of instructional webinars to help you understand and get the full benefit of your SLRAD. My main objective is to discuss some primary features that you may not be aware of and an overview of how the SLRAD is designed to be implemented into your workflow. With each webinar, we will be diving deeper into specific areas and creating a better understanding of how to make use of those features. Everyone joining the call today, I believe, is already a customer and should know how to take the SLRAD into the field, run tests, and get scores. What I want to focus on today is several items that go beyond simple operation of the SLRAD. As I said, today I will cover several items that go beyond simple operation of the SLRAD. These are helpful tips and bits of information that I have found useful to pass along. The purpose of today's webinar is to provide knowledge that may help better use the SLRAD and also to help take better care of the device so it stays in good operating condition. I do want to point out that the information I will be presenting is based on our latest operating firmware version 2.8 and later. Here's what I will discuss today. A basic overview of SLRAD benefits. Device operation, which includes startup sequence, verify operation, and I will run through the menus on the device. Proper handling, how we recommend to store the SLRAD, proper charging, transportation, handling and use of the rotating pivot arms, as well as shipping. Some examples of what not to do. I'll show some pictures of what we see when the units come in for repairs. Also, diagnostic, testing, and troubleshooting. I'll go over error codes, common issues, how to figure out what is wrong if you think the device is not working properly. And I should point out that there really are no common issues. The issues we see a lot of times are just with new users that aren't familiar with the device, and the devices are built to be rugged and withstand the typical use in the field. I'll cover what repairs you can do, and finally, I'll answer some questions. As most of you already know, the SLRAD is made up of two coupled devices that sit on top of adjacent manholes. The transmitter, or TX, creates a range of tones while the receiver, or RX, listens. Based on the acoustic profile received by the RX, a score will be generated between 0 and 10. This gives a general understanding of the segment's blockage conditions. 0 indicates a blocked pipe, while a 10 indicates a pipe with plenty of capacity for additional flow. The score is generated in 3 minutes or less, meaning a crew can inspect 10 to 20,000 feet per day. What does it look like to inspect 10 to 20,000 feet per day? This is a real example of data exported from an SLDog portal. You can see the results from just 1 week of SLRAD screening can help this utility to understand where cleaning or additional inspection is necessary. It would have taken a lot more time and money to clean this entire region, and most of those resources would have been wasted on areas with no actual immediate need. Now this utility can use acoustic screening insights to focus maintenance resources to the white and red segments on this map, which are the blocked and poor segments. This is where maintenance resources will be most impactful and very possibly prevent a future SSO. This acoustic screening process saves time, water, and money by reducing unnecessary cleaning and optimizing resource deployment. Relevant to today's challenges, the SLRAD requires no flow contact or confined space entry, helping to reduce unnecessary risk or exposure for field crews. Using the SLRAD as the first step in a maintenance program identifies areas that need additional resources are quickly, easily, and safely. I'm going to cover some information about device operation. First, The startup sequence. When you first turn on the RX and TX, they both go through a series of startup steps that are shown on the display of the device. The verify operation, or verification test, is a self-test that helps the operator know if the set is functioning properly and ready to produce pipe assessment scores that can be reliably used to direct follow-up maintenance actions. Each unit, RX and TX, has device menus which can be scrolled through to see additional information, past test results, and also to change some settings within the device. The startup sequence will be outlined below. The device will not move on to the next step until it successfully completes the current step. This is important in some cases to show if the device is functioning properly. The steps are as follows. When you first turn on each device, you will see the InfoSense logo. This is a test of the display. Next, you will see the word association. This is when each device is finding and linking to its friend. If the wireless communication between the units have outside interference or otherwise not operating properly, they will not be able to move on and take acoustic measurements. Moving on, you will see the word synchronization. This is a step where the RX and TX are passing data back and forth between each other. The RX is telling the TX some basic functional settings like time zone, and the TX is passing any data collected during previous measurements to the RX. This is an important step in that the RX needs all the data from measurements taken in the field before it can upload data to the web portal. I would like to go into this a little further. As I just stated, synchronization, or data sync, must be complete in order to upload data to your computer. If this process hasn't completed, you will get an error when you plug your SLRAT RX into your computer with the USB cable. There are two ways to complete this step. One will be discussed later, which is to select Data Sync in the menus of the RX. The other happens every time you turn both units on. It is typically thought of as easier to turn the units off and back on again to complete the data sync, rather than selecting the menu options. The last step in the startup sequence is acquiring GPS. Again, the unit will not move on to a functional state until it locks onto satellites. However, a note to assist when uploading data to your computer, as I've said several times, the startup sequence won't move on to the next step until it completes the current step. Once you get to acquiring GPS, that means the data sync is complete. If all you are trying to do is upload data to your office or work center, then once you see acquiring GPS, you can turn the units off and begin the steps to plug your device into your computer. You will likely not get satellite data inside a building, but you don't need it unless you are trying to take more acoustic measurements in the field. If you are outdoors and can't get past this step, you may need to move to a better area with a clear view of the sky to attain satellite link. Once you have satellites, the RX and TX will go to a screen that shows battery level and is ready to run tests. Older firmware units might see Enter Operator ID. This is an optional feature that allows the utility to designate a numerical ID to each operator. We found that people weren't using this feature as designed, so we have now moved it to the SLDog mobile app by using custom user fields. The verify operation can be selected in the menus of the RX and TX to make sure the unit is functioning properly and is ready to produce reliable scores. This test is outlined in the operator manual and is recommended to be completed at the beginning of each day. It is also part of the ASTM standard that should be followed to be sure you are in compliance. The verify test is your choice, and it should be used anytime there is a suspected issue. If you think the units aren't functioning properly or think the scores aren't correctly representing the pipe condition, the first step to take would be to run this test. The verify operation test will run through the same sequence of tones as a regular field acoustic test, but at a lower volume. It produces a score at the end of the test, and you should get a 9 or 10 if the unit is in good working order. To run the test, scroll through the menus on both the RX and the TX devices separately and select Verify Operation. Place the two units side by side in the folded up condition as if you were putting them away. The microphone should be within a few inches of the speaker, facing in the same direction. Start the Verify test on the TX and then on the RX and wait for a score. It should go through about 5 sequences of the tones and produce a result. There are several menu options that you can scroll through, as shown here on the top display picture. You access the menus by pushing the left square button on the SLRAT. You'll also see the center circle button is to start a test, and the right square button goes to page 2 of 2. Once in the menu, you will see the 3 buttons change function, as shown in the bottom picture. The left square button scrolls through the menu, the middle circle button returns to the main test page, and the right square button allows you to select the menu option that is blinking at the top of the menu list page. The menu list is as follows. Data Sync initiates the synchronization of data from the TX to the RX as discussed earlier. Verify Operation takes you to the menu to start a self-test. Operator ID allows you to select a 2-digit numerical identifier for your operator. Review Results lets you look at previous acoustic tests taken and the score produced from those tests. System Info shows several pieces of information such as the current measurement ID number, how many measurements need to be synced, the firmware version, etc. Options menu is only available on the RX and allows you to change the GPS time offset to display the correct time zone. It also lets you change from feet to meters. Once you change something in this menu, you must return out of the settings to save the changes and then power both the RX and TX units off so the RX can tell the TX to follow these changed settings. Power Save puts the unit in a battery saving rest mode. This mode automatically self-initiates after several minutes of not being used. You can wake the unit up from Power Save by pressing any button. Contrast and brightness has settings you can change if you can't see the display based on ambient lighting conditions. Date and time shows the current date and time provided by the GPS location data. GPS Monitor shows many GPS specs like the latitude and longitude, the number of satellites linked, and the type of GPS tracking being used, as well as its operational status. XP status. This will show good, fair, low, or out of range, which is the signal strength of the wireless communication between the RX and the TX. These menu options are not necessarily needed to use the device, but could provide added information. If you have an older version, one of the main reasons you will go into these menus is that you will need to go to the System Info page to see the battery level. On the latest firmware, the battery level is shown on the main operating page. Also, on older firmware, when you're using the SLDog mobile app, you will need to go to the Review Results menu screen of the RX to verify what measurement ID you were on currently. There are several items I would like to discuss that pertain to proper handling of the SLRAT. The SLRAT is designed to be rugged while still portable to hand carry. Some repairs we have seen could have been avoided by better care. Our hope is to inform users of simple ways to keep their SLRAT functioning properly for a long time. Storage. We recommend to use the supplied black storage bag for storage. If the unit is not in use, the bag is specifically designed to protect it. It's important to keep the unit out of extreme temperatures when not in use. The recommended storage temperature range is listed as -4 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. This could mean that in a vehicle, in the sun, may not be appropriate to store the device. The SL-RAT is designed to be water resistant, not waterproof. You can use it in wet weather, but it should not be submerged, and there are steps that can be taken to deal with water. Make sure the blue caps on the bottom of each control box are installed whenever not using the USB or charging ports. Don't push on the glass display when there is water present. And if the unit gets wet, it would be appropriate to towel dry it. Avoid heat sources or forced air around the speaker, microphone, or display. Charging. Keep the batteries charged. Long-term, full discharge of the batteries can be damaging to the cells. If you're going to store the units for an extended period, like a month or more, it would be good to fully charge the batteries and to periodically put them back on the chargers. The chargers are designed to not overcharge the batteries, so there's no harm in leaving them on chargers for long periods. Again, it's important to pay attention to the temperature range. The battery manufacturer recommends the ambient temperature during charging stay within 32 degrees to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It is important, just like with any electronic equipment, to use a clean source of power. Use a line conditioner and a battery backup if you know you have unstable power in your area, and avoid using generators to charge the batteries. The batteries don't have a memory issue like rechargeable batteries in the past. It is okay to charge them constantly without letting them die all the way. The batteries have an expected 3-year lifespan of daily use, although we have seen many units with batteries that are in the 5 to 7-year-old range. Something else to note is while the batteries are on chargers, you can turn the devices on, but it is not recommended to operate the device while they are plugged into the wall. The amplifier circuit that creates the tone is not designed to work off of wall power. It is specifically designed to run off the batteries. Transportation. Again, use the black storage bag in your vehicle. That's what they are designed for. Some people choose to remove the top flat sheet of foam, which allows the bag to zip shut with less effort. This is still a safe way to transport the units. If you don't have room in your vehicle for the bag, be sure to secure them so they don't bounce around. We have seen many customers who design racks in their vans or even in their shops to hold the units. That is fine as long as they are secure. We say just to not treat them like a shovel. Avoid driving with the units laying on the floor of a truck bed. The control boxes impacting a truck bed over even small bumps and vibrations can cause damage. Weather and harsh conditions should be considered with any electronics. The extreme temperature swings from a heated truck cab to a freezing winter day can cause condensation and rapid expansion or even cracking of electronic components. The SL-RAT is designed to be fully functional in the conditions that exist in the industry. They are rugged, but enough beating and improper care will break them. When in the field and walking from one manhole to the next, carry the units by hand. Don't drag them. We have seen some creative ways to add shoulder straps and handles to make for easier transportation. The knobs that lock the pivoting arms in place should be used with care. Loosen the knobs to rotate the pivot arm and tighten it again once it's in position. There is a flat, recessed internal part in the pivot that can be damaged if the knob is not loosened before forcing the arm to rotate. The TX unit is balanced. The arm with the speaker and the control box is evenly weighted. What you should be aware of is that the RX unit is quite top-heavy, since the microphone doesn't really weigh anything. It can accidentally swing down and damage the control box. Set the units down on the manhole, don't throw them down when you do. When you do place them, be aware again of the pivot lock knobs. They should be pointing up when the unit sits in place on the manhole. If they are facing down, they could be bent and damage the frame. Avoid impact to the speaker when carrying the unit, as well as when placing it in the manhole. The speaker magnet can be shifted with enough of a severe impact, rendering the speaker inoperable. Don't set the units in the mud, especially since it's very common to leave the pivot arm extended as it is during use, and set the units down on the ground with the microphone or speaker being used as a leg. Try to avoid this, as the speaker and microphone are the sensitive areas of the units. If you set them down in mud or dirt, the grill can allow debris to pass through the holes and cause interference in the functional performance of the unit. Once again, when shipping the SL-RAT, use the black storage bag with the foam trays. The bag is designed to protect the units even under the harsh handling of shipping companies. If you have a box to put the bag in as well, that is the only way that we ship units. It's good to find a place to store the box we send your unit in to you, just in case you need to ship it in the future. Otherwise, I've seen people use a wardrobe box trimmed down with success. Just a note, due to the lithium-ion batteries in the devices, they do need to be shipped by ground transportation. The following are some examples of what can happen with improper care of your SL-RAT. The picture on the left was a microphone that had been broken by setting it down repeatedly using the microphone arm as a leg. The two smaller pictures on the right are microphones that can't hear anything because they have so much mud caked up inside them. Similar to the last picture, with enough mud, you can fill up inside the speaker. Once that mud dries, it's not coming back out. This was a fairly new speaker in great condition that came in for service because it wasn't making tones anymore. The speaker on the right has a hole poked through the grill and through the speaker cone. Someone must have set the entire unit down on the speaker on something sharp. This display is crushed along the right side. The worst part was the water that ended up inside and ruining the electronics. With enough of a forceful impact, you can snap the 3-cell battery. Again, unfortunately, that battery damaged the circuit board. These two units have seen severe damage to just about every part of the device except the outer frame. The SL-RAT does not like to be run over by a car or truck, but surprisingly, it happens. These pictures are evidence of some really careless rough use. The control box on the left looks like it was dragged down the road for a few miles, and the one on the right looks like the speaker enclosure was beat on the edge of a few too many manhole lids. Some unnecessary abuse that resulted in a speaker failure. This bent frame knob is what happens when you set the unit down with the knobs pointing down at the ground. They don't function much after this happens. Diagnostics. I'll go over error codes and different issues you may encounter. Testing. Make sure your device is operating properly using the verify test that I mentioned earlier. And troubleshooting. How to figure out what is wrong if you think the device is not operating properly. Overall, the SL-RAT has proven to surpass the designed life expectancy. Failure of any product, and especially one used in an environment such as outdoor utility work, can happen, but it's rare with proper attention to device care. Some of the operational issues we have seen include power issues, which are usually caused by battery failure. Eventually, the battery will fail just like any other rechargeable power source. Sound quality issues like weak or no tones or garbled sound or buzzing. There are also error codes built into the device that will report major issues upon powering on the unit or when initiating a test. I will cover some of these issues and what to do if you come across the unit not performing properly. The following issues are uncommon, but I have tried to put together a list of what I have seen over the past several years. Most operational failures on the SL-RAT are often caused by rough handling that leads to damaged parts. If the units won't associate or complete a data sync, there is likely an issue with the XB wireless communications chip in one or both units. The chip is surface mounted on each of the main circuit boards and can be dislodged with a good impact, or a bad impact, I should say. If the units won't communicate with each other, they will not upload to a computer and likely won't be able to perform more acoustic tests. They will need to come in for repair of this circuit. One thing to note, if you come across an issue where you cannot upload your measurements from the RX due to a damaged part, we are almost always able to recover that data for you once the units come in for service. GPS issues can be caused by environmental factors such as buildings, trees, heavy cloud cover, or other objects blocking the view of the sky. If you have waited 10 minutes or so trying to get GPS, you may need to move to another area that has a better clear view of the sky. Just like the XB chip, the GPS chip and antenna is surface mounted on the main circuit board. With a strong enough impact, the chip can be knocked off the board or the antenna disconnected from the chip. This, most times, cannot be repaired without installing a new GPS chip. The latest firmware has the ability to clear GPS data tables by selecting Reset GPS after several minutes of trying to acquire satellites. Once you select Reset GPS, be sure to give it a good 10 to 15 minutes to find satellites. Each time you select this feature, it will take longer to acquire satellites. Older versions of the firmware don't have the ability to manually clear this data. If there is an extended issue with getting GPS on older units, you may need to shut the unit off overnight to clear the GPS data tables and try again in the morning. If you notice the batteries are not lasting as long as they used to, this is, of course, normal aging of the battery and should be replaced before you're left stranded with a unit that doesn't power on. If one of the devices won't turn on, try plugging it in with a charger and then turn it on. Have it off and leave it charged for at least 30 minutes. If the device will then turn on, but then shuts off as soon as you unplug the charger, it is most certainly a failed battery that needs to be replaced. If you're noticing the device shutting off on its own or cycling power and automatically turning back on, you probably have an intermittent power circuit inside the device. This could be a range of things, from a loose wire to an intermittent circuit board failure or a damaged battery intercell connection. In this case, the unit will need to come in for inspection to be sure no further damage resulted from the flickering power. Error codes will present themselves if a condition exists in the device that recognizes as a fault. Some error codes will come up during the startup sequence and read as a 6-digit number. If you see an error code, try turning the unit off, wait a few seconds, and turn it back on. The code may clear, and you are good to continue working. If the code persists, the unit will need to come in for service. These error codes do designate more serious failures, and again, if they don't go away, you'll have to send it in for diagnostics. Other error codes are built in as words that appear if the unit powers on as it should, but then fails when a test is initiated. One such example could be the words battery fault. This condition means that the amplifier on the TX does not have enough power to create the tones. It could be as simple as a battery that has just barely enough power to turn the unit on, but not enough power to amplify the tones. Try recharging the unit first. If the error still appears, it could be something more severe, such as the amplifier circuit burned up or some other issues with the circuit board. The unit will need to come in for diagnostics to figure out what is causing this issue. It could also be a seized speaker that the amplifier is trying its best to move, but is overworked by the failed speaker. The only common issue I see is new users having trouble uploading. This is usually an easy fix. As I stated earlier, in order to upload measurements from your RX to your Windows PC, you must first complete a data sync between the RX and TX. The first step, if you have problems with connecting your RX to the computer, should be to unplug the USB cable, turn both RX and TX off, turn them both back on, and let them complete the data sync. Many times, if you were to look at the RX display when you're having computer connectivity issues, you will even see the display reads TX data sync required. When the RX is successfully connected to your computer and turned on, the RX display will read connected to PC, follow directions on PC. A more recent issue with uploading to your PC is if you have recently had your SLRAD in for service and chosen to upgrade the operating firmware. The latest firmware release requires a free download of the new version 4.0 of the Windows SLDOG data transfer tool. If you're having speaker issues, the unit will once again need to come in for service. The speaker is calibrated to the device, and that can only be done in our shop. The speaker is expected to last roughly 3 years, but is essentially the only moving part that will eventually wear out. If the speaker sounds bad, or you think you are getting incorrect scoring, first look at the speaker and see if there is any debris that can be removed. If the speaker looks fine visually, then try running the verify operation test. If you get a 7 or below, there is an issue that needs to be addressed by our repair team. Another thing to look at, if you are getting low scores, is the microphone. If the microphone is caked in mud or the metal grill covering the mic has been pushed in, it won't work and will need to be replaced. If you're having a display issue, the screen might need to be replaced. You can change the contrast and brightness to try to make it more viewable, but that's about it. There is a middle range default that prevents you from turning the brightness all the way up or all the way down and then turning the unit off. It will reset when you power the device on, so you can again see the screen. The only repair that can be performed on the SLRAD outside of our factory service center is to replace the main batteries. Do not remove the speaker. The speaker again is factory calibrated to each specific device, and they are not interchangeable. This is why most repairs can't be done in the field. The two units need to be calibrated and programmed to operate as a matched pair. That programming and all of our testing needs to be done in our shop. You can clean the device, but be careful around the speaker, the microphone, the display, and the ports on the bottom of the control boxes. Avoid using any pressure washing or harsh chemicals. I've heard people ask how to clean the yellow frame cushions, and there really isn't any way to make them look new again. The material they are made from is purpose-built for durability and longevity. Unfortunately, they do get dirty and don't come clean. The worst condition frame cushions that I have seen were damaged by harsh chemicals. It's better to just let them do their job of protecting the units and not try to restore them. As mentioned, the battery is something that can be replaced without sending your SL-RAT in for service. I need to caution you that you cannot purchase a battery from another source without risk to the safety of your SL-RAT product. Batteries that go into products such as the SL-RAT have to go through extensive testing to be certified as in compliance with UN 38.3. Installing batteries without this designation can cause damage to the product and even harm to the people around. The good news? You can purchase these batteries direct from InfoSense, and we can ship them to you for installation by a qualified individual. When you purchase a battery from InfoSense, we will include 2 instruction sheets. The first one has instructions on safely opening the control box with details of how to reconnect the wiring inside. There is one big caution on this sheet. That is, when you remove the control box top, to be careful how you set it down. Do not set it down with the circuit board side facing the table. Set the box top down on the display bezel with the circuit board facing up. If you don't follow this instruction, you can damage the circuit board, which is an expensive mistake. The second instruction sheet outlines the steps of how to replace the battery. Of course, follow these steps closely and observe the wiring connections. Some of the wires can be plugged in incorrectly, which again can cause damage to the circuit board. It's a very straightforward process. If you follow the instructions, you'll be fine. Once you have replaced the battery, be sure to properly dispose of the old battery. Many retail hardware stores have lithium-ion battery disposal services. To wrap things up, we have covered device operation, proper handling, what not to do, diagnostics, testing, and repairs. Thank you for joining the webinar today. We hope this has been informative and appreciate your feedback from previous webinars. Have a great day, everyone.